We're back, everybody, and we just witnessed a profound moment, I think, in American history.
It was great. I feel great about the country. I don't know about you guys.
That one's going down in the history books. I mean, the single takeaway, I wish we could sit here as people who like policy and who would like to get into the back and forth, and the profound truth is this: we just witnessed, I mean, one of the saddest political moments, like maybe the political death of Joe Biden, and the absolute just shocking nature of his appearance, of his delivery. Even whenever we were trying to parse the substance, Krystal, the four of us, we couldn't even get to what he was saying. Incomprehensible. The coughing, he coughed a record 5 times in the first 30 seconds of the debate. And I mean, I'm just sitting here stunned. I don't know what else I can say.
I mean, 2 words. Elder abuse.
Yeah.
It was painful to watch. Yeah, like from the jump.
It was painful.
His voice, his face, his inability to maintain a single train of thought, it was horrendous. And like, I mean, Trump is all over the place and said all kinds of things that I can't stand and lies and doesn't answer the question, whatever. But like you said, Saagar, I can't even get to like, oh, let's talk about their different stances on it. First of all, they don't really have that different stances on immigration or Israel or any number of other issues. But, you know, I would love to get into, let's talk about Biden's antitrust. Let's talk about labor policy.
Right.
No one who watched this debate is going to get past the fact that he was so much worse than I think we've been, expecting. We know that Biden is not where he was. We expected some problems in this debate. This was so far beyond what I anticipated. Yeah. I don't know what to say.
Ryan?
Yeah, it felt like he spent way too much time at Camp David rehearsing, practicing.
With the statistics, did you notice
that? The statistics, he had
all these stats.
And he had a couple of what you could tell were supposed to be one-liners, but he only got through like half the line. I think I saw him heading over our neighborhood around 4:30 or so. So like he just kind of got into town. If that was
stepped off the plane and went straight there. Yeah.
And he was just worn out, and his voice from the very beginning was awkward. So people are now like in the Democratic Party are thinking. It's funny. In the beginning of this, I said there are some decent number of grassroots Democrats who are kind of hoping that he has such a poor performance tonight that it just forces him off the ticket.
That they have to pull him.
Not because they don't like Biden, but because they want to beat Trump.
So do you think this was that performance?
It was that performance.
If it was anything, it's this. I mean, that is the worst
possible.
That is the worst moment of his life.
So we should note, Emily will be joining us shortly. She's doing something else. We didn't kick Emily off the island. We love Emily. She wanted me to share with you. She also thought he looked old and terrible.
Well, she said old as fuck. Let's be honest. Let's actually repeat what she said.
She said he's old as fuck, and she'll share more of her thoughts when she returns. I mean, listen, going into this, I was like, it's gonna be Biden. I thought anyone who thinks they're gonna pull him, you're delusional. It's gonna be Joe Biden. Like, deal with it. We all need to live in the realm of reality. This is when it's hitting home. After this, I'm like, maybe. I'm very curious. Yeah. I shouldn't say this because it will incentivize people to switch over to the mainstream coverage. I am actually curious what they're saying on MSNBC and CNN. Because I know the Cope, somebody tweeted out like, I have 2 sources who say he has a cold. It's like, that doesn't come close to explaining.
So the Biden campaign, Krystal, has called every mainstream reporter in the country and has gotten them to run the reporter. 2 sources say he has a cold. And as I said, presumably when you have a cold, you take Sudafed or something with pseudoephedrine.
We know what a cold looks like. That's what it doesn't look like your brain melting in real time,
the stone face, the open mouth gape. I mean, anybody who has an elderly person in their life has understood what we all just witnessed. It was horrifying, almost from the very beginning. And just to give people a taste, too, as you said, Krystal, too, of what the mainstream coverage was. Let's put F1, please, up on the screen, just to give people an idea of how such an unmitigated disaster. This is from the AP. The AP, the most middle-of-the-road mainstream. And this is what they put out on their newswire to their entire subscriber service. Quote, in the first half hour of the debate, a raspy Biden delivers rambling answers while Trump counters with energy and falsehoods. But even they have to say, raspy Biden rambling answers. And they even have to acknowledge Trump counters with energy. This is also where I have to eat
and the
my
falsehoods,
words.
he does fall.
Okay,
Yes,
it's like
it was
politicians are
falsehoods all
talking
the way through.
All right,
And he's Trump.
But he's Trump. But I will say this too: the rules unambiguously worked in the favor of Donald Trump. There's
All of
no
them.
question. I think that was one of the top 5 performances of his life because he just seemed like relatively normal. He had a few moments, there's some stop the steal there at the end. People aren't going to like that. Even on abortion, he was a little bit all over the place. But the whole point is we can't sit here and parse because the average person, and I want everybody at home to think about this, the average person in your life, your father, your sister, your cousin, the person who doesn't watch anything, but they did watch this, what are they going to take away? It ain't anything to do with late-term abortion. It is, oh my God, what is going on in front of us? Go ahead, Krystal.
So Kyle texted me an update from MSNBC.
Yeah.
He says they're waving the towel. Nicole Wallace said people will be talking about whether he should be in the race.
Wow.
And so
wow.
The MSNBC folks are probably talking to some of the same types of people in Washington that I'm talking to. And yes, they're absolutely, completely panicked.
Yeah.
People who have been involved in politics for decades, who 2 hours ago were saying, put your big boy pants on. Like, he's the
Stop
nominee.
wetting the bed.
Stop wetting the bed, all this stuff. There's no mechanism. Some of them are still saying, look, these are the different paths.
Okay.
Some are saying, something's got to give. This is insane. Like, these are very sober, centrist-minded, like, Washington creatures. Some of them are saying something's got to give, and we've got to.
From the control room, they're telling us that CNN has called his performance, quote, dismal. Griffin saying, quote, CNN saying it's joke. I mean, this is just, it is unambiguous. And to a certain extent, I look, not so much of a victory lap. Krystal, how many, and Ryan too, how many recriminations have we all received over the last 5 years for pointing out?
Apologies.
I genuinely do want an apology. This was foisted upon the American people. People in the White House, you should be ashamed of yourself. Jake Sullivan and all the other folks who see this stuff up close. We've been reporting it here day after day. G7 leaders, he's gotten worse. We have the public moments. But to see this up close, 90 minutes with no filter is insane. I mean, we're in 25th Amendment territory. Yeah. Is this man alive? Like, what the fuck is happening?
So I want to hear what the other Washington. So you've got the one group that's
one group is saying, this
is crazy.
This can't go on. It has to change. The other group is saying, no, there's no way to get him off. Yeah. But what we're going to do is we're going to focus on the House and Senate. Basically, just
like give up. Yeah. That's the idea.
Just give up.
Hey,
I thought this was the end of democracy.
That always works.
And make the argument for Biden that he has a very good staff. And that you want Democrats nominating the appointees, you want Democrats in control of these agencies.
All right.
And you're probably going to lose, but you can maybe win the House and Senate.
Okay.
Right? And we went into this.
Wait, isn't there a third group?
No, that's basically
it. Okay. Okay, I got it.
There's
no just delusional. And he was great.
No, there's none of that.
I thought he was
Zero.
very strong. There's none of that. Okay.
Absolutely zero.
Got it.
And before this, the normal Democratic Senate candidate, like a Tester or a Jackie Rosen or something, was running about 5 to 6 points ahead of Biden already, which showed you that there isn't, and Democrats are heartened by this in the sense that they're like, oh, look, the public likes Democrats.
Right.
They just don't like Biden.
Yeah.
But it's like, well, but Biden is your nominee.
Right.
So they already had a 5-point gap before this. That could widen to something
10,
historic.
15,
You've never
20,
had a situation where the candidates are kind of pulling. I mean, the House and Senate candidates are pulling the presidential.
Usually they
ticket
talk about
along.
coattails.
It's coattails.
Yeah, it's the opposite dynamic. Barack Obama brings along all these people, right? It's incredible. I mean, tell me this, Ryan, from the people you're talking to in Washington, like, what did they think of the state of his condition going into this? Yeah. Because what I was thinking about is, your rank and file Democratic House member, Senate member even, staffer, they don't really have access to him. Mm-hmm. When we get these reports, Jamie Harrison will come out, oh, you should see him behind closed doors. He's a real firecracker. Yep. But the reality is that based on the reporting, his circle has gotten smaller and smaller and smaller. Yes. So the number of people who are even in a position to be aware that this is the reality now of what we're dealing with is actually probably pretty small.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So just as we're viewing this with shock, and again, we were under no illusions about Biden's level of decline at this point, but even for us, we thought, okay, he'll get the drug cocktail. He usually rises to the moment. He'll get something going. There's not one moment I could point to this in this debate and be like, oh, he did a good job there. Not one, right? So for many of them, it has to come as equally of an eye-opening moment, if not more, because they were probably buying some of the delusions about the like, oh, behind closed doors, they say he's great.
And also they think it doesn't matter that much because the administration is on autopilot. They don't deal directly with Biden. They have their handler that they deal with in the administration. If they want something, they know who to call.
Right.
It's only Chuck Schumer, basically.
The gears are turning in the way
that deal
they're
with Biden.
expecting them to turn.
Right. As long as the gears turn and he's hopped up enough for the State of the Union and the debates, then they're like, all right, this is not ideal, but we'll go with it. But when you can't even get hopped up for the debate.
David Axelrod's, Obama's former, communications director, he says on CNN, I think there was a sense of shock how he came out at the very beginning of the debate.
Let's actually play. Yeah. Let's play for people the, this is F4, the beat Medicare moment, because it was from the very first word. First of all, the voice is bad, the look is bad, the walking on the stage is bad. Like, everything is slow. He's having trouble whining. He is coughing. But this was the moment when we all looked at each other and were like...
If you want to roll the tape, you can actually go back and see that moment. All of us covered our mouths with
like,
absolute
shock. All right, so
shock.
play F4, the beat Medicare moment for us.
Making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID. Excuse me, with dealing with everything we have to do with, look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
Well, he's right. He did beat Medicare. He beat it to death, and he's destroying Medicare.
We fully beat Medicare.
Yeah, that was it.
After struggling around for what he was even talking about. I mean, and Medicare had nothing to do with what the original question was. It just... and there were many other moments that were similarly discomforting.
I want to say, too, about Trump, one of the strengths that he had in this debate was he only a couple of times said something along the lines of he doesn't even know what he's saying, challenged him to the cognitive test. You can see there, though, at one point, Biden was delivering an equivalently incoherent old man answer, and Trump is just smirking and sitting there, but he didn't jump on the bait. So this is where there was like a level of discipline I haven't seen from Trump in a long time, and the rules helped him. He didn't jump in there, allowed Biden to hang himself, and I think I even said that. I was like, hey, I went back and found a tweet that a couple of days ago, and I was like, hey, I don't think that these rules are going to have Trump, and I go, but the alternative is that it will force Trump to sit back, and if Biden has an old man moment, the focus will 100% be on him. And I mean, he didn't just have an old man moment. It was 90 minutes of just weird old man stuff already. Yeah, here we go. CNN's David Axelrod. There are going to be discussions on if he should continue.
Van Jones, according to Mac, producer Mac, there's a lot of time until the convention if Biden will allow us to go.
There you go. I mean, we're in full-on freak out mode. We were talking, and actually, Ryan, that's the question I have for you. I said only Obama can bring this to an end. But do you think even Obama could bring this to an end?
I think he
called
could.
him and said, it's over, Joe.
Also,
it's over.
And we need to like put responsibility on people who have it. Like people like Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries.
Yeah.
Like if they said something publicly right now, it would change the equation. Like it would open it up to a real question. And there is nothing stopping Chuck Schumer or Hakeem Jeffries from going out and saying something. They're not even Obama, but they're significant players. What that would do is that would signal to their troops that they're allowed to talk about it openly as well. So these are grown adults who have agency, who have an opportunity to do something for their party right now that they know they ought to do, and they're probably not going to do it. They're probably going to say, well, he's the nominee.
And we also should go back because there was, after the midterms, there was a whole lot of circling the wagons to make sure that a Gavin Newsom or whoever didn't jump in because the midterm performance was better than expected. That was successful. Then you get to the primaries and, first of all, there's just complete blackout of all the candidates who did challenge him. And then in certain states, they just literally did not hold primaries, right? Yeah. There were no debates. Florida, North Carolina, there were a number of places where they're just like, we're just literally not going to do a primary. And so, anyone who could have at any moment who had the knowledge of this is what we're dealing with, could have spoken up, could have pushed in another direction, could have shed some light and reality here, and instead chose to go in a different direction and pretend and leak these anecdotes. Oh no, I have trouble keeping up with him.
KJP,
He's so
how many
energetic.
times did KJP say that from the White House movie?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
How many times?
Like, I mean, these people are shameless liars.
Yeah.
If you've had any exposure to him and you're out there doing he's the real Spitfire behind the scenes, you guys wouldn't believe him and I can't keep up with him, blah, blah, blah. Like, no one believed you. And certainly now it is so clear. Not only are you lying, but by your own definition, you believe this is an existential election. You believe democracy is on the ballot and women's rights are on the ballot. And you are risking all of that for your career. I mean, because they're afraid to speak out. They're afraid they'll be persona non grata in the Democratic Party. And so they all stay silent. They all close ranks. And this is what they and we and the whole country get
Also,
for
the level of outrage we should all have now for them not allowing that primary to happen. You know, I mean, that was one of the most undemocratic. And in retrospect, too, with Biden, I said this to all of you privately. I mean, he will go down as one of the most selfish men in American history. I mean, just complete the arrogance, the selfishness.
That is true. Although at this point, I feel more about it the way I came to feel about Dianne Feinstein, which is like, it's the people around her.
No, you're right.
Because she got to a point where she was so out of it. She didn't know that she was out of it.
But he's not at that level. He's still there.
Maybe. Like, I think he is there enough where I don't know. And this is one of those where, again, I think everyone can tell, like, we're all like in a state of shock. The big question is, and this is the issue, I believe, he is such an arrogant man. When and I've always said this, and the press corps friends always tell me this
about
when he puts those aviators on, he believes he's 30 years younger. And knowing him too, he's always the I'll show him president, the I'll show him guy.
And he is he's a toxic boss who does not want to hear any dissent and has surrounded himself with yes men who will bolster him on whatever it is. And there was just reporting about how everybody's afraid to say anything at all critical because they think they'll be excised from the inner circle and probably, and for good reason, they believe that. He's had this same basic group around him for 40 years.
Except like people like Ted Kaufman who are like, I'm too old. I can't do this anymore.
The ones that are drunk.
Significantly younger than him.
His peer who's 10 years younger than him.
That's exactly right. And so I think that I don't know that he realizes his decline. I'm not sure that he sees it. I don't think that he has that awareness.
Well, okay, this is my big question. I can't wait to see what Joe Scarborough has to say tomorrow morning. Let's return to that. The media coverage of this. Wall Street Journal puts out that piece. Behind closed doors, Biden is old and a mess behind the scenes. But you still had all those on-the-record quotes, like you said, Ryan, and senators, people like, oh, I can't keep up with him, and the level of freak out from the White House. And Krystal, 2 weeks ago, they were calling us cheap fakes for playing that video of him at the G7.
That's right.
That was, what 2 weeks ago here? They're litigating whether we're, uncomfortably clipping moments. Yeah, show me. That whole thing was a vindication of so much of the coverage. I mean, people can probably tell I'm angry, because it's just, at a certain point, too, I also feel as you do, the media, the people around him, it has been an outrageous conspiracy to basically cover this up and to be in compliance. At every moment, the evidence was there. Canceling the major interviews, less press conferences than anybody in history, not allowing all of us to see how cooked our freaking president is. And then canceling the primary, dragging his ass up until election. I see here some reporting. They're like, look, the only way that Biden is going to be able to come out is if Schumer, Pelosi, Bill Clinton, and Obama convince him to stand down. I don't have the confidence that they have, that they would do that at this point. I think they're just, I don't know. And combined with this arrogance to actually convince him. Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.